The smell hit me first, that acrid, choking smoke that burns your nose and makes your eyes water instantly. I was 7 months pregnant, standing in what was supposed to be Gabriel's nursery, watching the orange flames crawl up the walls like living things. My water broke right there, not from labor, but from pure terror. I screamed Lucas's name until my throat was raw. My husband, my firefighter, the man who'd sworn to protect me. And then I heard it, the crash of the door being kicked in downstairs. "Morgan!" His voice. Oh God, he was here. He was going to save us. I pressed myself against the far wall, one hand on my belly, the other reaching toward the doorway. The heat was unbearable. The ceiling was starting to crack above me, raining embers like hellfire. Lucas appeared in the doorway, full gear, helmet cam light cutting through the smoke. Our eyes met. I saw him see me. I extended my hand, sobbing, "Lucas, please, the baby." And then he looked past me, to the corner, where she was crouched. Eva, the woman I'd caught texting him 3 months ago, the one he swore was just a friend from a call. She was here, in my house, in my baby's nursery, while it burned. Lucas moved, but not toward me. He walked right past me, so close I could have grabbed his jacket, and scooped her into his arms. I screamed. I begged, and he looked at me with eyes colder than I'd ever seen and said, "The structure won't hold for 2 trips. I'm sorry." Sorry. That word echoed as he turned his back and carried her out, her arms wrapped around his neck, while I stood there with his child inside me, watching the doorway fill with flames. The ceiling started to collapse. Instinct took over. I threw myself into the clunky old clawfoot bathtub Lucas had been too lazy to remove during renovations, yanked down the shower curtain and soaked towels, covered myself and my belly. The world became fire and noise and prayer. I don't remember much after that. They told me later that a second unit arrived 4 minutes after Lucas left. 4 minutes? They found me unconscious. 3rd-degree burns on my arms and back. Smoke inhalation so severe I was on a ventilator for 3 days. When I woke up in the ICU, my mother was crying beside me, and the first thing I did was put my hand on my stomach. It was flat. Empty. Gabriel was gone. The nurses said my body went into shock. Emergency C-section. But he was too small, too early, compromised by the smoke. They let me hold him once. He was perfect. Tiny. Silent. And on the TV mounted in my hospital room, there was Lucas, cleaned up, uniform pressed, being interviewed by the local news. I tried to get her out, he was saying, voice breaking perfectly. But she was having some kind of episode. She kept screaming that she needed to get something, wouldn't leave. I had to make an impossible choice. The reporter nodded sympathetically. The Chiron read, "Local hero captain saves neighbor. Wife refuses rescue." That's when I knew. This wasn't just betrayal. This was murder. And he was going to get away with it. Unless I made sure he didn't. The pain meds made everything fuzzy. But not fuzzy enough. Every time I moved, the burns on my back screamed. Every time I breathed, my lungs felt like I'd swallowed glass. But worse than all of that, worse than anything physical, was the emptiness. They'd put me in the maternity ward because of the emergency C-section, and I could hear babies crying through the walls, other women's babies, living babies. I'd press the call button just to have someone come in, anyone, so I wouldn't be alone with that sound. The nurses were kind, but I saw it in their eyes. That question, the one nobody wanted to ask out loud. What kind of mother gets saved from a fire and loses her baby anyway? Detective Caruso came on my 4th day. He was older, gray hair, tired eyes, the kind of cop who'd seen everything twice. He pulled up a chair, flipped open a notepad, and asked me to walk him through the night of the fire. I told him the truth, all of it. How I woke up to smoke. How I ran to the nursery because that's where the smoke detector was screaming. how Lucas chose her over me. He wrote it all down, nodding, and then he said, "Mrs. Chen, I need to ask you something difficult. Had you been drinking that night?" I stared at him. "What?" "No. I'm 7 months pregnant. I was 7 months." He held up a hand. "Your husband mentioned you'd been struggling. Postpartum depression starting early, anxiety. He said you'd been lighting candles everywhere, obsessively. Some kind of nesting thing gone wrong." My blood went cold. "That's not true." Detective Caruso looked uncomfortable. "There were 17 candles found in the debris, Mrs. Chen, some knocked over near curtains. And your husband said when he arrived, you were standing in the nursery, unresponsive, like you were in shock. He thinks you might have started the fire accidentally and then dissociated." I couldn't breathe. Lucas had built a narrative, a perfect, airtight story that made me the villain of my own tragedy. The detective kept talking, something about how traumatic events can cause memory gaps, how grief does strange things to people. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was remembering. 3 months ago, when I confronted Lucas about Eva's texts, how he'd turned it around, said I was being paranoid, hormonal. That pregnancy was making me unstable. How he'd suggested I see a therapist, even made the appointment for me. Jesus. He'd been laying the groundwork, building the narrative of the crazy pregnant wife so that when this moment came, everyone would believe him. The news broke the story that afternoon. I watched it from my hospital bed, numb. "Heroic Fire Captain's Impossible Choice." The headline read. They interviewed neighbors. Mrs. Patterson from 3 doors down said she'd seen me, acting strange, for weeks, talking to myself in the garden. Mr. Kim said he'd smelled candles burning at odd hours. Lucas appeared on camera again, this time with Eva beside him. She was wearing a neck brace, probably from his smoke inhalation, and holding his arm for support. "I just happened to be dropping off some meal prep," she said, voice trembling. Morgan had been so stressed about the baby, I wanted to help. When I smelled smoke, I ran inside, but it was already so bad. She dabbed at her eyes. Lucas put his arm around her shoulders, protective, and the reporter ate it up. What an amazing community, rallying around Captain Chen in his darkest hour. I turned off the TV. My hands were shaking, the one part of me that hadn't been burned. The city believed him. The police believed him. Even my own mother had asked, gently, if maybe I'd been a little distracted that night. But I knew the truth, and somewhere, somehow, I was going to prove it, because Lucas had made one critical mistake. He'd let me live. And now I had nothing left to lose. They buried Gabriel on a Tuesday. Gray skies, cold rain, the kind of weather that feels like the universe is mourning with you. I was still in a wheelchair. My legs worked fine, but the doctors insisted. Something about risk of fainting from the pain meds. My mother pushed me to the graveside, and I felt every eye on me. Not sympathetic eyes, judgmental ones. I could hear the whispers, see the sidelong glances. And that's her. The one who started it. Can you imagine? Her own baby. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and shake every single one of them and tell them the truth. But I couldn't. Not yet. So I sat there, silent, staring at the tiny white coffin that held my son. Lucas gave the eulogy. Of course he did. He stood there in his dress uniform, medals gleaming, voice cracking in all the right places. Mom Gabriel was going to be our miracle, he said, and I watched him wipe away a tear. I held Morgan when we found out we were pregnant. I felt him kick for the first time. I painted his nursery blue because she wanted yellow, and we compromised. The crowd laughed softly, warmly. He was so good at this, so convincing. And on that night, when I broke down that door and saw the flames, all I could think was, save them. Save my family." His voice broke completely. I tried. God, I tried. But sometimes even heroes fail. The pastor put a hand on his shoulder. People were openly crying. And Lucas looked right at me, still dabbing his eyes. And I saw it. Just for a second. The coldness underneath. The calculation. After the service, people came to pay respects. They hugged Lucas. They thanked him for his service. They told him he was brave, that he'd done everything he could. I got a different treatment. Awkward nods, tight-lipped sympathy. Mrs. Patterson actually had the audacity to say, "I hope you're getting the help you need, dear." Like I was the problem. Like I was sick. Lucas worked the crowd like a politician, shaking hands, accepting condolences, and then he made his way to me. Crouched down beside my wheelchair, took my hand in his. To everyone watching, it looked tender, supportive, but his grip was tight, fingers digging into the bandages on my palm. He leaned in close, lips near my ear, and whispered, "Don't make a scene. You know this was your fault. You've always been careless, Morgan, leaving candles lit, forgetting to turn off the stove. It's a miracle this didn't happen sooner." His breath was hot against my neck. "If you try to blame me, if you say one word against Eva, I will make sure everyone knows exactly how unstable you are. The hospital records, the therapy sessions, I'll bury you." He pulled back, kissed my forehead gently, and the cameras flashed. Perfect grieving husband. And then I saw her, Eva, standing at the edge of the cemetery, partially hidden behind a tree, wearing all black like she had any right to mourn. She caught my eye and, I swear to God, she smiled, just a tiny lift of her lips, like this was all some private joke between her and Lucas, like my dead son was a punchline. Lucas stood, straightened his uniform, and walked over to her. She immediately grabbed his arm, steadying him like he needed support. He leaned into her, and she whispered something in his ear that made him nod. The mourners saw it too, but they interpreted it differently. How kind of her to be here for him. What a good friend. He'll need support through this. I watched them walk away together, her hand on his back, his head bowed in mock grief. And I made a promise right there, sitting beside my son's grave in the rain. I didn't care what it took. I didn't care what I had to sacrifice. Lucas wanted to bury me with lies? Fine. But I was going to dig up the truth, and I was going to make him choke on it. I moved back to my parents' house 2 weeks after the funeral. I couldn't go back to the house, our house, even if it hadn't been a charred skeleton. My childhood bedroom felt too small, too pink, too full of memories of a person I used to be, a person who trusted her husband, who believed in happy endings. I spent most days in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying that night over and over, looking for something I missed, some detail that would prove what really happened. My mother kept bringing me food I couldn't eat, asking if I wanted to talk, suggesting I call the therapist Lucas had set me up with. Maybe it would help to process everything, sweetheart. I didn't tell her that seeing Lucas's therapist was the last thing I'd ever do. On the 16th day, I opened my laptop for the first time since the fire. I'd been avoiding it, avoiding everything digital. But I needed to see if any photos of Gabriel had survived. We'd had a cloud backup, one of those automatic things Lucas set up years ago that uploads everything. I logged into our shared account, hands shaking, praying that maybe the ultrasound pictures were there. The ones where you could see his perfect little profile, his tiny hand near his face. I found the photos folder and started scrolling, crying as each image loaded. His first ultrasound, the gender reveal, me at 6 months, glowing and stupid and so goddamn naive. And then I saw it, a folder I didn't recognize. Helmet cam auto backup. My breath caught. Lucas had been documenting his hero journey for months, talking about starting a YouTube channel or a blog. He'd wear his helmet cam during calls and post-edited videos. I'd thought it was narcissistic but harmless. I clicked on the folder. There were dozens of files, dates and timestamps. I scrolled down, heart pounding, and found it. The date of the fire, 11:47 p.m. The timestamp matched. The file was huge, 23 minutes of footage. I stared at the thumbnail, my cursor hovering over it, because some part of me knew that once I watched this, there was no going back. My hand moved on its own. Double-click. The video opened. Static at first, then the shaky POV of Lucas running, the audio of sirens and shouting. I could hear his breathing, heavy and fast. The camera showed him approaching our house, flames visible in the upstairs windows. He was yelling into his radio. Structure fully involved, second floor, possible entrapment. Then he kicked in the front door, and the smoke was so thick the camera's light barely cut through it. I watched him climb the stairs, each step deliberate, and then, there, the nursery door. He shouldered it open, and the camera swept across the room. I saw myself, standing against the far wall, hand on my belly, face streaked with tears and soot, reaching toward him. "Lucas, please, the baby!" My voice was desperate, breaking, but the camera didn't stay on me. It panned left, and there she was. Eva, crouched in the corner near the closet, and in her hand, Jesus Christ, in her hand was a lighter. She was flicking it on and off, grinning, like this was fun, like this was exciting. And Lucas's voice, clear as day through the helmet mic. "Eva, baby, put that down. We gotta go." Baby. He called her baby while his actual baby was dying inside me. Eva stood, stumbling a little, clearly high on something. "This is better than I imagined," she slurred. "Watching it all burn?" Lucas grabbed her arm. "Come on, we'll say it was an accident, candles or whatever. Just stick to the story." And then I heard my own voice again, screaming now. "Lucas!" The ceiling! The camera turned slightly, caught me for just a second. And then Lucas said, "And I will never forget this, not if I live 1,000 years. The structure won't hold for 2 trips." He said it calm, clinical, like he was stating a fact, like he wasn't choosing to let me die. The footage showed him scooping Eva into his arms, her giggling against his chest, and then the camera bounced as he ran back down the hallway. I could hear my screams echoing behind him, getting fainter. "Lucas, please, don't leave me, the baby." And he never looked back. The video ended 3 minutes later when he exited the building, and the last audio was Eva whispering in his ear, "You really did it. You really chose me." And Lucas's response, "Always, baby, always." I watched the video 4 times. Then I threw up. Then I copied it to 3 separate hard drives, uploaded it to a private email account, and sent it to the only person I knew I could trust, my college roommate, Jennifer, who was now a defense attorney in Seattle. I wrote one line in the email, "Watch this, tell me what we do next." But before I could do anything else, I needed to know who Eva really was, because nobody just shows up in a burning building with a lighter for fun. I started digging. Social media first. Her profiles were public, full of selfies and posts about living my truth and not apologizing for my fire. Fire. She used that word a lot. Too much. I searched her name with criminal record and found a news article from 6 years ago. Local woman arrested for arson after warehouse fire. Eva Morales, age 24 at the time, diagnosed with pyromania, sentenced to mandatory psychiatric treatment and probation. The article included a quote from the fire marshal. She told investigators she liked watching things burn, that it made her feel powerful. And Lucas, my husband, the fire captain, had known her from that call. He'd been the one to pull her out of the warehouse. He'd saved her life, and then he'd brought her into ours, into our bed, into our house, and together, they'd burned it all down. But now I had proof, and I was going to use it to burn them right back, Jennifer called me at 2 in the morning. I hadn't really slept since the fire, so I answered on the first ring. Morgan. Her voice was tight, controlled, the lawyer voice she used when things were serious. I watched it, all of it, and I need you to listen to me very carefully. Do not, and I mean do not, tell anyone about this footage. Not your parents, not the police, not a single soul. My heart sank. Why? Jen, this is proof. This is everything. Exactly, she interrupted. Which means if Lucas finds out you have it, he'll destroy you before you can destroy him. He's a fire captain with a spotless record and a city that thinks he's a goddamn superhero. You're the grieving widow he tried to save, who everyone thinks started the fire. We have one shot at this, and we cannot miss. She paused. We need to be smarter than him. We need to let him think he's won. The plan was simple, brutal, and it made me want to vomit. I had to go back to Lucas. Not physically, I couldn't stomach that, but emotionally, I had to make him believe I was broken, that I'd accepted his version of events, that the grief and the pain meds had shattered me so completely that I couldn't tell truth from fiction anymore. He needs to relax, Jennifer explained. Right now, he's watching you, waiting to see if you'll fight back. If you do, he'll double down on the crazy wife narrative. But if you fold, if you become the victim he's painted you as, he'll get comfortable, sloppy, and that's when we strike. I hated it. God, I hated it. But she was right. So I started making calls. First, I called Lucas. He answered on the third ring, voice soft and concerned. Morgan? Are you okay? Your mom said you've been sleeping a lot. I'm sorry, I said, and I made my voice small, fragile, defeated. Lucas, I'm so sorry for everything. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you mean? I took a shaky breath, the kind you take when you're about to break. I've been thinking about that night, trying to remember, and I think you were right. I think I did leave candles burning. I was so tired, so overwhelmed, and I wasn't careful enough. My voice cracked. Gabriel died because of me, didn't he? I could practically hear Lucas smiling through the phone. Hey, no, don't do that to yourself. It was an accident, Morgan. A terrible accident. You were under so much stress, and pregnancy does things to your mind. I know, I whispered. I know it does. I think I need help. Lucas, real help. Maybe that therapist you mentioned. Bingo. He exhaled, relieved. Yeah. I think that's a great idea. I'll call Dr. Brennan tomorrow. Get you an appointment. We're going to get through this, okay? Together. The word made my skin crawl, but I swallowed the rage and said, thank you for not giving up on me. When I hung up, I sat there shaking, nails digging into my palms. Jennifer had been listening on speaker. Oscar-worthy, she said quietly. Well, now let's find out everything we can about his partner in crime. Eva Morales was easier to research than I expected, mostly because she couldn't help but document her entire life online. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Every platform was a shrine to her chaos. But buried in the comments of a post from 3 years ago, I found something interesting. A reply from someone named A Phoenix Rising that said, "Stay strong, E. Arson charges don't define you." I clicked the profile. It led me to a support forum for people with impulse control disorders. And there, under her real name in a post from 4 years ago, Eva had written, I was diagnosed with pyromania when I was 19. Spent 2 years in treatment after I burned down my ex-boyfriend's car. He deserved it, LOL. But the urges never really go away. They just hibernate, waiting for the right spark. The post had dozens of replies, but one caught my eye. A reply from Lucas's account, a burner account. but with his email attached in the profile. I understand fire more than most. If you ever need someone to talk to who gets it, I'm here. That was 6 years ago, right around the time of Eva's warehouse fire. Lucas hadn't just met her on a call. He'd been grooming her, building a relationship with a known arsonist. For what? Insurance money, freedom from his pregnant wife, both. I dug deeper. Financial records. I still had access to our joint accounts, and Lucas clearly hadn't thought to lock me out yet. He'd been withdrawing cash, lots of it, 500 here, 1,000 there, always from ATMs far from our neighborhood. In the 6 months before the fire, he'd pulled out nearly $40,000. Our savings were almost empty. And then I found the life insurance policy, the one I'd signed when I got pregnant, at Lucas's insistence. Just in case something happens, Morgan, we need to protect our family. $2 million, with Lucas as the sole beneficiary. If I died, he'd get everything. The house insurance would cover the fire damage, another $300,000, and with me gone, he and Eva could ride off into the sunset with nearly $2.5 million and zero consequences. Except I hadn't died. I'd survived. And now I had the footage that proved everything. Jennifer filed a motion to obtain the full fire marshal's report, the police records, and Lucas's personnel file, all under the guise of me seeking closure and potentially suing the city for inadequate fire safety response time. It was a smokescreen, but it worked. Lucas didn't see us coming. When I saw him next, at the lawyer's office to discuss division of assets, since I'd decided to take some space, he hugged me. Actually hugged me. "I'm glad you're getting help," he murmured into my hair. "I was worried about you. Really worried." I hugged him back, breathing in the cologne he always wore, the smell that used to mean safety and home, and I smiled against his shoulder, knowing that every word he said, every fake gesture of concern, was digging his grave deeper. "I'm going to be okay," I told him. "Arf, thanks to you." But what I was really thinking was, enjoy it while it lasts, Lucas, because soon, the whole world is going to see exactly who you are. The invitation came in the mail 6 weeks after Gabriel's funeral. Thick cardstock, embossed gold lettering, the city seal at the top. "You are cordially invited to the annual Heroes Gala, honoring the bravery and sacrifice of our first responders." And there, listed among the honorees, Captain Lucas Chen, recipient of the Medal of Valor for extraordinary courage in the face of mortal danger during a residential structure fire. I stared at that invitation for a full minute, reading it over and over, until the words blurred. They were giving him a medal. For leaving me to die. For choosing his mistress over his wife and child. For playing the hero while he was actually the villain. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Bitter and metallic, like blood. Lucas called that afternoon. "Did you get the invitation?" His voice was careful, probing. "I know this might be hard for you, but the department really wants me to attend. It's a big honor, Morgan. The mayor will be there, the press. They want to do a whole segment on the fire, on the impossible choice I had to make." He paused, and I could hear the calculation in his silence. "I think it would mean a lot if you came. Show people we're united, that we're healing together." Every fiber of my being wanted to scream no, to tell him to go to hell, to burn that invitation the way he'd burned my life. But Jennifer's voice echoed in my head. Let him get comfortable. Let him think he's won. So I swallowed the rage and said, "Okay, I'll come." Lucas exhaled, relieved. "Really? Morgan, thank you. I know this isn't easy." "It's not," I said, letting my voice crack just enough. "But you deserve recognition for what you did, for trying to save us both." The lie tasted like poison, but I forced it out. "I'll be there." The night of the gala, I stood in front of my mirror for 20 minutes, staring at the woman looking back at me. I'd chosen a black dress, long sleeves to cover the burn scars that crawled up my arms like angry vines, high neck to hide the ones on my collarbone. I'd lost 20 pounds since the fire, weight I couldn't afford to lose, and the dress hung on me like a shroud. My mother had helped with my makeup, covering the hollows under my eyes, the pallor of my skin. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," she'd said, but her voice was sad. I didn't look beautiful. I looked like a ghost, which was fitting, considering I was supposed to be dead. I touched my stomach, still soft, still empty, and made a promise to Gabriel. "Tonight, baby, tonight, Mommy makes it right." Lucas picked me up at 7, and I almost didn't recognize him. He'd gotten a fresh haircut. His dress uniform was pristine, and he was wearing that cologne again. He opened the car door for me like a gentleman, and when I slid in, Eva was in the back seat. My blood turned to ice. She was dressed in a navy sheath dress, hair curled, looking like she belonged there, like this was normal. "Morgan," she said, voice dripping with fake sympathy. "It's so good to see you out. Lucas has been so worried." "Eva's my +1, Lucas interrupted smoothly, catching my eye in the rearview mirror. The department gave me 2 tickets, and I thought, well, she was there that night too. She deserves to be recognized for her bravery. Bravery. The woman who'd set my house on fire was being celebrated for bravery. I wanted to claw her eyes out right there in the back seat, but instead, I smiled. Weak, broken. Of course, that makes sense. The gala was held at the Grand Ballroom downtown, the kind of place with crystal chandeliers and marble floors and waiters in bow ties carrying champagne. We arrived to a red carpet, an actual red carpet, with photographers and local news crews. Lucas stepped out first, waving, and the cameras went crazy. "Captain Chen, over here." "Captain, how does it feel to be honored tonight?" He ate it up, posing, smiling that perfect smile. Then he turned and offered me his hand. I took it, and the flashes intensified. "Is this your wife? Mrs. Chen, how are you recovering?" I didn't answer, just smiled that same sad, broken smile I'd been practicing for weeks. Lucas pulled me close, whispered in my ear so only I could hear, "Perfect. You're doing perfect. Just keep it together for a few more hours." And then Eva stepped out of the car, and Lucas, without hesitation, offered her his other arm. The 3 of us walked in together, and I swear I could hear the whispers, see the confused looks. But Lucas had set the narrative: devoted wife, heroic neighbor, and the captain who'd tried to save them both. Inside, the ballroom was packed. Firefighters in dress uniforms, police officers, EMTs, city officials, all mingling with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. People kept approaching Lucas to congratulate him, and he introduced me every time. "This is my wife, Morgan. She's been so strong through all of this." They'd shake my hand, offer condolences, and I'd nod, mute, playing the part. But I was scanning the room, looking for the AV booth, the projection system, the tech setup. I'd hired someone, a freelance AV tech named Marcus who owed Jennifer a favor, to be working the event. I spotted him near the control panel, adjusting cables, and when our eyes met, he gave me the smallest nod. Everything was ready. All I had to do was wait for the right moment. Lucas leaned down, kissed my temple, and murmured, "Thank you for being here. I know what this costs you." "Oh, Lucas, you have no idea what this is about to cost you, but you're about to find out." The lights dimmed. The MC took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We're about to begin the Medal of Valor ceremony." Lucas squeezed my hand one last time, then made his way to the front row. Eva followed, sitting beside him, her hand resting on his knee. And I stayed in my seat 3 rows back, right on the aisle, right where I needed to be. The MC began listing Lucas's accomplishments, his years of service, the lives he'd saved. Behind him, a massive screen lowered from the ceiling, currently showing photos of Lucas in action, heroic shots, dramatic angles. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. And then the MC said the words I'd been waiting for. And now, to present Captain Chen with the Medal of Valor, please welcome Mayor Richardson to the stage. Lucas stood, walked up the stairs, shook the mayor's hand, turned to face the audience. He was smiling, waving, soaking in the applause, and I pulled out my phone, opened the encrypted app Marcus had given me, and pressed the button that said, "Execute." The screen behind Lucas flickered. The heroic photos disappeared, and in their place, crystal clear and impossibly loud, was the helmet cam footage from the night of the fire. The audio hit first, my voice, screaming through the ballroom speakers, "Lucas, please, the baby." Every head in the room turned toward the screen. The footage was playing at full volume, crystal clear, the POV shot from Lucas's helmet cam showing exactly what he'd seen that night. You could see me, 7 months pregnant, backed against the wall, reaching for him with desperate, soot-covered hands. And then the camera panned left. There was Eva, crouched in the corner, that lighter in her hand, flicking it on and off with this sick, dreamy smile on her face. The ballroom went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. And then Lucas's voice came through the speakers, that cold, calculated tone. "Eva, baby, put that down. We gotta go. Baby." He'd called her baby, while his actual baby was dying inside me. I watched the audience's faces shift from confusion to horror to disgust in real time. The mayor's mouth fell open. The fire chief went pale. And on stage, Lucas was frantically waving his arms, shouting, "Turn it off! This is some kind of mistake." But Marcus had locked the system. There was no turning it off. The footage kept playing. Ava stumbling to her feet, slurring, "This is better than I imagined. Watching it all burn." Lucas grabbing her arm. "Come on, we'll say it was an accident. Candles or whatever. Just stick to the story." And then my voice again, piercing. "Lucas, the ceiling." The camera caught me for just a second, pregnant, terrified, dying. And then Lucas said those words that had haunted me every night. "The structure won't hold for 2 trips." Someone in the audience gasped. The footage kept rolling, Lucas carrying Eva out while my screams echoed, getting fainter. "Lucas, please, don't leave me, the baby." And then Eva's whisper, "You really did it. You really chose me." Lucas's response, clear as day, "Always, baby, always." The screen went black, the lights came up, and for 5 full seconds, nobody moved. They were all staring at Lucas, who stood frozen on stage, still holding the Medal of Valor, his face a mask of panic and rage. Then the room exploded. People were shouting, standing, pointing at him. He left her to die. His wife was pregnant. Lucas grabbed the microphone, voice cracking. "This is fake. It's edited. My wife. She's not well. She's been unstable." But nobody was listening. The footage was too clear, too real, too damning. I stood up from my seat, and every eye turned to me. I'd been so quiet all night that they'd almost forgotten I was there. But now I walked down the aisle, slowly, deliberately, my heels clicking on marble. People parted for me. I climbed the stairs to the stage, and Lucas's eyes went wide. "Morgan," he hissed, reaching for me. "What did you do? What the fuck did you do?" I stepped up to the microphone, and my voice, my real voice, not the broken whisper I'd been using, rang out clear and strong. "My name is Morgan Chen, and 6 weeks ago, my husband left me to burn to death while he saved his mistress. I lost my son that night. Gabriel. He was 7 months old in my womb." My voice didn't waver. Lucas told the world I started that fire, that I was crazy. But what you just saw is the truth. From his own camera, he chose her, he planned it, and he let our baby die. The room erupted, reporters rushing forward, cameras flashing, everyone shouting questions. And in the chaos, I saw Eva trying to slip out the side door. But 2 police officers were already moving toward her. "Ma'am, we need you to stay right there." Eva's head snapped up, eyes wild, and she looked at Lucas, panicked. Detective Caruso, the same detective who'd interrogated me in the hospital, was walking up the stage stairs, badge out, face grim. And that's when Eva broke. She started screaming, backing away from the officers, voice hysterical. It was his idea. It was all his idea. She was pointing at Lucas, tears streaming. He wanted the insurance money. He said we could be together if she was gone. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just like fire. But he said it was the only way. He knew about my record, used it, gave me the lighter, told me where to start it. She collapsed to her knees, hands over her face. He made me watch while he left her there, and she was screaming. And oh God, what did we do? Lucas lunged for her. "Shut up! Shut your mouth, you crazy bitch!" But Detective Caruso grabbed him, spinning him around. "Captain Chen, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and arson." Lucas was shouting, fighting against the cuffs. "She's lying. She's a pyromaniac. She's insane." But another officer was already cuffing Eva, who looked up at Lucas with heartbreak in her eyes. "You said you loved me. You said we'd be together forever." Lucas stopped struggling for just a second, looked at her with cold contempt, and spat. "You were never worth anything. You were a tool, a useful idiot, and now you're going to prison for the rest of your pathetic life." The officers dragged them both toward the exits, and the crowd, the same crowd ready to give Lucas a medal 5 minutes ago, started booing. Someone threw a dinner roll. Another shouted, "Murderer!" As Lucas passed my row, he looked at me one last time. Our eyes met, and I smiled. Not the broken smile I'd been wearing for weeks. A real smile. The kind that says, "I won." His face contorted with rage, and he lunged toward me, but the officers yanked him back. "You'll never prove it!" he screamed. But his voice was drowned out by the crowd's fury, and then he was gone, hauled out in handcuffs, his Medal of Valor abandoned on the stage floor. I picked it up, felt the weight of it, and I walked to the edge of the stage, where cameras were rolling, and I held it up. This medal is supposed to represent courage, sacrifice, heroism. My voice carried through the room. My husband deserves none of those things, but my son, Gabriel, does. He was the real victim. I set the medal gently on the floor. This is for him, not the man who killed him. And then I walked off that stage, through the crowd, out into the cool night air, where police cars were gathering, their lights painting the darkness red and blue. And for the first time since the fire, I felt like I could finally breathe. The trial took 8 months, 8 long months of depositions and evidence hearings and media circuses. Lucas hired the best defense attorney money could buy, or rather, his parents did, mortgaging their house to pay for it. The lawyer tried everything. He claimed the helmet cam footage was doctored, tampered with, inadmissible. He brought in expert witnesses who testified about video manipulation and metadata corruption. But Jennifer had been smart. She'd had 3 independent forensic analysts verify the footage before we ever released it, and their reports were ironclad. The video was real, unedited, authentic. And when the prosecution played it in court, showing that same footage to a jury of 12 ordinary people, I watched their faces change: disgust, horror, rage. One woman in the jury box was crying. Another man was shaking his head, mouth pressed into a thin line. They saw exactly what I'd seen: a man choosing his mistress over his pregnant wife, a man leaving his own child to die. Eva testified against Lucas. She'd taken a plea deal, 20 years in a psychiatric facility instead of life in prison, in exchange for her full cooperation. She sat in that witness box for 3 days, detailing everything. How Lucas had been grooming her for years after he saved her from that warehouse fire. How he'd told her about the life insurance policy, the unhappy marriage, the baby he never really wanted. How he'd convinced her that setting the fire would be exciting, thrilling, the ultimate rush. He knew what I was, she said, voice flat, medicated. He knew I couldn't resist fire, and he used that against me, against her. She looked at me then, sitting in the gallery, and her eyes were empty, hollow. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know it doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry." I didn't respond, didn't nod, didn't acknowledge her at all, because sorry doesn't bring back your baby. Sorry doesn't heal burns. Sorry is just a word people say when they've already taken everything from you. Lucas never testified. His lawyer advised against it, knowing the prosecution would tear him apart on cross-examination. But on the last day of trial, right before closing arguments, he stood up in the courtroom and demanded to make a statement. The judge tried to stop him, but Lucas was shouting, face red, veins bulging in his neck. "She's not innocent. Morgan's not some perfect victim. She was cold, distant, obsessed with that baby. I felt like a stranger in my own house. Eva understood me. She saw me. And yeah, I made a choice that night. But it was an impossible situation, and The judge was banging his gavel, ordering Lucas to sit down, but he kept going, kept ranting. "I served this city for 15 years. I saved lives, and now you're going to destroy me because of one mistake. Because I chose wrong in a split second." His voice cracked. "I'm not a monster. I'm human, and humans make mistakes." The courtroom was dead silent. And then someone in the gallery, a firefighter from Lucas's own station, stood up and walked out. Then another, until half the room had emptied, unable to even look at him anymore. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the forewoman stood and read the verdict with a steady voice. On the count of attempted first-degree murder, guilty. On the count of conspiracy to commit murder, guilty. On the count of arson resulting in death, guilty. On the count of insurance fraud, guilty. 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 7 counts total, each one another nail in Lucas's coffin. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later, and when that day came, she looked down at Lucas with something like disgust on her face. "Mr. Chen, you were a fire captain, a public servant, a man entrusted with the safety of this community, and you betrayed that trust in the most heinous way imaginable." She paused. "You left your pregnant wife to die for money and lust. You killed your unborn child, and then you lied to this entire city, painting yourself as a hero while your victim suffered in silence." The judge's voice hardened. "I hereby sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. May you spend every day of that life thinking about the son you murdered and the woman you tried to kill." Lucas didn't react, didn't cry, didn't shout. He just sat there, stone-faced, as the bailiffs came to take him away. But as they led him past my seat, he stopped, turned his head, looked right at me, and he smiled. This cold, empty smile that made my blood run cold. "You think you won," he said quietly, so only I could hear. "But you'll never be whole again. You'll never have Gabriel back. And every time you look in the mirror and see those scars, you'll remember that I did that to you. I marked you. Forever!" The bailiff yanked him forward, but Lucas kept talking, voice rising. "You're damaged goods, Morgan. Nobody will ever want you. You'll die alone, just like you deserved to die in that fire." And then he was gone, dragged through the doors, his voice echoing down the hallway until it finally faded to nothing. I sat there for a long time after everyone left. Jennifer put her hand on my shoulder. "He's wrong, about all of it." I nodded, but I couldn't speak, because part of me, a small, broken part, wondered if Lucas was right, if I'd always carry this with me. The scars, the loss, the memory of my baby's silent body in my arms. But then I thought about that night in the ballroom, the moment the truth came out, the look on Lucas's face when he realized I'd beaten him. And I realized something. I wasn't broken. I was rebuilt, forged in fire, just like steel. Stronger in the broken places, Lucas had tried to destroy me, and instead, he'd created something he couldn't control. Someone who wouldn't stop, who wouldn't quit, who would burn down his entire world to get justice. And I had. So yeah, maybe I'd never be whole again. Maybe I'd carry these scars forever. But I was still here, still standing, still breathing. And Lucas? Lucas was going to rot in a cell for the rest of his miserable life, knowing that the woman he tried to murder was the one who destroyed him. The lawsuit against the fire department came next. Jennifer filed it 3 weeks after Lucas's sentencing, and honestly, I thought it would be a long shot. But the city was terrified of the publicity. The headline, "Fire Captain Tries to Murder Pregnant Wife," had already done enough damage. They settled out of court for $4.2 million. The statement they released was carefully worded, full of legal jargon about systemic failures and oversight, and commitment to enhanced screening protocols. What it really meant was, "We're sorry we employed a psychopath. Please don't sue us into oblivion." I took the money, not because I needed it. No amount of money could bring Gabriel back, but because I had plans for it. Big plans. I spent 6 months just existing. Going to physical therapy for my burns. Seeing a real therapist, not the one Lucas had chosen for me. Learning how to sleep without nightmares, how to hear sirens without having a panic attack, how to look at pregnant women without feeling like someone had ripped my heart out all over again. It was hard. Some days I didn't get out of bed. Some days I'd stand in the mirror and trace the scars on my arms and chest. These angry red rivers that would never fully fade, and I'd cry until I had nothing left. But slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, I started to heal. Not the scars. Those were permanent. But the part of me that Lucas had tried to kill, that part started coming back to life. The Gabriel Chen Foundation launched on what would have been his first birthday. I rented a small office downtown, hired a staff of 3, and we started with a simple mission: help victims of arson rebuild their lives. We paid for medical bills, therapy, legal fees, housing, all the things I'd been lucky enough to afford but that most people couldn't. The first person we helped was a single mother whose ex-boyfriend had set her apartment on fire with her and her 2 kids inside. She'd escaped with second-degree burns and nothing else. No clothes, no documents, no savings. We gave her $20,000, found her a new apartment, and paid for her kids, trauma counseling. When she came to thank me, she broke down crying in my arms. "You saved us," she kept saying. "You saved us." But really, she was saving me. Because every person we helped, every life we touched, felt like I was honoring Gabriel. Like his death meant something. The foundation grew faster than I expected. Within a year, we'd helped 43 families. Within 2 years, we'd opened a second office in Portland. The media loved the story. Woman survives murder attempt, builds empire of hope. And while I hated the attention, I used it. Every interview was a chance to talk about arson victims, about domestic violence, about the women who don't survive. I went on podcasts, spoke at conferences, testified before Congress about the need for better domestic violence screening for first responders. And every single time, I wore short sleeves. No more hiding the scars. These were my credentials. My proof that I'd survived, that I'd won. Lucas sent me letters from prison, dozens of them over the years. I never opened a single one, just wrote "return to sender" and dropped them back in the mail. Jennifer told me he'd been attacked twice by other inmates. Apparently, even criminals have standards, and baby killers aren't popular in prison. The second attack left him with a permanent limp and a scar across his face. I didn't feel happy about it, didn't feel sad, didn't feel much of anything. Lucas was just gone. A chapter of my life that was closed. He'd tried to erase me, and instead, I'd erased him. 5 years after the fire, I went back to the house, or what was left of it. The lot had been cleared, the debris hauled away, but nobody had bought the land. Couldn't, really. The notoriety made it worthless. I stood there in the overgrown grass, looking at the concrete foundation, and I tried to remember what it felt like to be happy there, to be pregnant and hopeful and planning a nursery. But I couldn't. That woman was gone, burned away just like the house. And in her place was someone harder, wiser, someone who knew that the world could take everything from you in a single night, but that you could still choose to build something beautiful from the ashes. I pulled a small box from my bag. Inside was Gabriel's hospital bracelet, the only thing I had left of him. I knelt down where the nursery used to be, dug a small hole, and buried it. "I kept my promise, baby," I whispered. "I made him pay. And now I'm making sure your name means something good." I covered the box with dirt, stood up, and walked away. I didn't look back. 10 years later, I stood in the memorial garden we'd built behind the Foundation's headquarters. It was small, but beautiful. Stone pathways, flowering trees, a fountain in the center with Gabriel's name engraved on a bronze plaque. Other names were there too. All the children and adults who'd been lost to arson, to violence, to people who'd chosen cruelty over love. I came here every year on his birthday, and every year it got a little easier. Not easy. Never easy, but easier. I traced my fingers over his name, felt the warm metal under my palm, and smiled. Not a sad smile, a grateful one, because Gabriel had given me purpose. He'd given me a reason to fight, to survive, to build something that mattered. And in a strange way, I think he saved more lives in death than Lucas ever did in life. The scars on my arms had faded to silver now, thin lines that caught the light when I moved. I didn't hide them anymore. Why would I? They were proof, not of what was done to me, but of what I'd survived, of what I'd overcome. People recognized me sometimes, at the grocery store, at coffee shops, at speaking engagements across the country. They'd approach carefully, almost reverently, and they'd say things like, "You're so brave," or "You're an inspiration." And I'd always smile and say thank you. But the truth was simpler than that. I wasn't brave. I was just someone who refused to let a monster win, who refused to let her baby's death be meaningless, who chose every single day to turn pain into purpose. That wasn't bravery. That was survival. And survival, I'd learned, was its own kind of victory. Lucas died in prison 3 years ago. Heart attack during a fight in the yard. He was 51. I got a notification from the Victim Services Office, and I felt nothing. No relief. No satisfaction. Just a quiet acknowledgement that he was gone and I was still here. Still building. Still growing. Still honoring my son. Eva was still in that psychiatric facility, probably would be for the rest of her life. I didn't think about either of them much anymore. They were footnotes in my story, not chapters. The real story was what came after. The foundation, the families we'd saved, the lives we'd rebuilt. That was the story that mattered. I picked up a small stone from the garden path and placed it on Gabriel's plaque. An old tradition, a way of saying, I was here, I remembered. And then I turned to leave, ready to head back inside for a meeting with our new board members, ready to keep doing the work that gave my life meaning. The fire had taken everything from me: my husband, my home, my baby, my innocence. But what it couldn't take, what it could never touch, was the truth. And the truth was this: I survived. I rebuilt. And I turned my tragedy into something that helped hundreds of people find hope in their darkest moments. That was my revenge. Not Lucas rotting in prison, not Eva locked away, but me, still here, still fighting, still refusing to let the fire win. The fire takes everything: your home, your safety, your sense of control. But you know what it can't burn? The truth. And sometimes, the truth is the only weapon you need. I exposed a killer in front of hundreds. But what happens when you get the call that your husband is brain dead? Rush to the hospital to say goodbye, and then discover he's very much alive, faking his own death with his mistress for your insurance money. The next story involves a plan that backfired in the most twisted way imaginable. Sometimes karma doesn't just catch up to you. Sometimes it traps you in your own body forever.